There have been some pretty gnarly exotics introduced into Destiny 2 as far as potency. Titan class has been our shining hero, in my opinion, in the exotic armor department. Thinking about Lorelei Splendor, Abeyant Leap, Pyrogale, Syntheseps, there's just so many different options. But the one that stands out to me the most, and the one I have had the most fun using, has got to be Wishful Ignorance. This exotic armor piece states, gain an additional Frenzied Blade charge. Frenzied Blade and Fletchet Storm briefly increase their damage with each strike. Pulses from your Banner of War return melee energy based on the number of allies healed. Now I know what you're gonna say, but you can't use Banner of War with Prismatic, to which I will tell you, you actually can. You just have to know what to use, but we will talk about building all the way into the Strand subclass a little bit later in this video, so make sure you watch all the way to the end for a treat. This exotic has completely transformed the way I use Prismatic, especially with the Strand subclass and abilities, just because of the sheer amount of damage that it outputs, as well as its ability to keep you alive. The problem with Prismatic Titan is it's all melee. There aren't very many ranged melee attacks in the game, and this sentiment from the community is that Prismatic Titan is no good. Well, I say to hell with that. Why not lean directly into the melee options we have available to us and slash through anything that gets in our way? Today, we're going to be going over a build that I call Woven Blade. We're going to be going over the subclass, the benefits of using that subclass, the fragments, the aspects, everything. I'm also going to throw in another option if you want to try this build out. So grab a snack, sit back, because this video is not going to be one that you're going to want to miss. I'm JT Goonie, and if you enjoyed this video and you like dealing massive amounts of damage to really any enemy in the game, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss another video, and catch me live on Twitch, where I stream Destiny 2 Mondays and Tuesdays. Jump in our Discord, where you can find a fire team and make new friends in the Destiny 2 community. Links down below. Now, let's get slicing. I won't spend too much time going over the weapons I'm using in this build, but I will make a few suggestions. On weapons that are an absolute must though, the Call Sidearm. This weapon, when you have some of the fragments active, can deal some serious damage. I did do a review on this video. I'll have a link to that video down below. If you want to go check that out, let me know what you think about the sidearm, and then come back to this video and let me know how it ties in well with the build. It's great for getting red borders out of the way. It's great for cutting through waves of enemies and close range and long range engagements. It's just an overall top pairing with this build. In the energy slot, I do recommend a solar or void weapon, something with incandescent or heal clip, and if you can get both on the same weapon, you are going to be in a much better position once we start talking about these fragments. I would use something like Nullify from Edge of Salvation raid, Zalu's Bane from the King's Fall raid. No Hesitation is another weapon that I would put pretty high on the list, because you can literally keep you and your team healed in between ability recharges and pretty much with any downtime. Or if you want to dig into the void weapon world, you could go with Repulsor Brace and the destabilizing rounds. What I would do is grab that Collective Obligation and literally debuff anything in your path. The options are pretty much endless here. In your heavy slot, you can really use whatever you want. I do recommend another Strand weapon. Pro Memoria is something that I have been using quite a bit, but it really doesn't have to be a Strand weapon. A Solar Rocket, Microcosm is amazing in this slot because it will keep your Transcendence energy pretty much topped up all the time. Experiment in the heavy slot and let me know what you guys end up using in the comments down below. So with Prismatic Titan, we are using the Strand subclass on this one. And for abilities, obviously we have the Transcendence and Electrified Snare Grenade for when we are Transcendent, but for your Barricade, you're going to want to use Towering Barricade. For the jump, we want to be on Strafe Lift for increased evasiveness. This right here is probably the most important part of the entire build though. Frenzied Blade for your melee for the direct tie into our exotic gauntlets. Absolute must. That fourth melee charge may not seem like a huge benefit, but with the stack in damage every time you hit something, it adds up quick. And lastly, we have our grenade as the Pulse Grenade. Great for clearing adds in large groups and making yourself amplified when you need to be a little bit fast on your feet. Also, this grenade ties perfectly into all of the fragments that we are using in this, especially the one that grants volatile rounds to void weapons. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So as far as aspects go, the main two we are going to be focusing on are Diamond Lance, shatter or defeat targets with abilities or stasis weapons to create a stasis lance. This is great for freezing a target in place to get some breathing room, for clearing adds in a boss fight, or just repositioning. When enemies who are frozen by a Diamond Lance, they do pass stacks of slow to nearby enemies when they die. Your allies can also pick these up and use them, which is awesome if you have someone running a stasis heavy build for debuffing and applying frost armor to themselves. We also want to be on the lookout for Dranger's Lash. Activate your barricade ability to create a ripple in reality that travels forward along the ground, suspending and damaging targets it hits. Again, leaning heavy into crowd control and making sure the enemy doesn't get too comfortable. Suspend is great for the melee aspect of this build because you know where the enemy is, they're not going anywhere. Pop a barricade, suspend a target, and slice away. Doesn't get any easier. Next up, we're going to talk about the fragments. This build only works because of the fragments available in Prismatic. So let's dive in and see where we're playing catch up with the lack of Banner of War. Starting with Facet of Protection, while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, this effect is increased. So you're looking at a 5% damage reduction when you are just near enemies, and when you are Transcendent, you're looking at a 10% damage reduction. This fragment also gives you plus 10 strength, melee build, more strength, no brainer. Facet of Balance, rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy, which is why I recommend using a solar or void weapon. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness energy grants energy with the call sidearm. So it's literally double tying in, double dipping into that energy you get for Transcendence. You can clear enemies very quickly, so you don't have to worry about ability downtime with this one. Facet of Mending, grenade final blows cure you. Transcendence grenades increase the strength of this effect. So with the pulse grenade, you're going to get about 10% health back per kill, but the real treat is when you are Transcendence and you get a kill with a Transcendence grenade, that kill will grant you about 33% health back per kill. The Transcendence grenade jolts and suspend targets it hits, but here's the kicker: if you defeat an enemy that is suspended with that grenade, it counts as a grenade kill. I'm not sure if this is an intended function, but boy, it really feels like stealing candy from Ava Levante. Next up, we have Facet of Bravery. Defeating targets with a grenade final blow grants volatile rounds to your void weapons. And here's the best part of Facet of Bravery. Defeating targets with powered melee attacks grants unraveling rounds to your Strand weapons. Great for keeping that barrier champs at bay and keeping tangles a-flowing. We've already gone over 3 ways to create tangles in this build alone, and we're not even halfway done. Another pretty important part of this build is Facet of Blessing. Melee final blows start health regeneration, while Transcendent, melee final blows start health regeneration for you and nearby allies. With the ability uptime in this build, it's pretty hard to die. Remember when I said that you can use Banner of War with Prismatic? Well, here's your Banner of War. With all the ways you can get your melee and grenade back, this should be active pretty much all the time. Now, you don't get the pulsing effect from Banner of War, and this facet will not proc Woven Mail, but I have a fix for that coming up shortly. Lastly, we have Facet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants either Amplified, Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or an Overshield based on the damage type of your equipped super. Woven Mail makes you more resistant to non-precision damage, which, let's be real, the Fallen and Cabal can't aim for shit, so we should be good there. This is going to make up for the lack of Woven Mail being granted to you when you activate Banner of War. All you have to do is pick up an Orb of Power. So let's go ahead and go over the armor and perks and stats that you want to kind of focus on with this build. As far as armor, to pair with these gauntlets, you're going to want to focus on resilience, strength, and discipline in that order. As you can see, I'm rocking 111 resilience, 102 strength, and 75 discipline. I know that 111 in the resilience slot isn't ideal, but I just get so unlucky with my Titan armor. Maybe you guys have better armor. For the armor mods, let's start with the helmet. The only perk that matters here is Radiant Light, granting your allies an armor charge, and if they are using a different damage type subclass than you are, they'll grant 2 armor charges. Moving on to the gauntlets, we have Melee Kickstart is going to be a must-have. When you use all of your melee energy, your armor charge is consumed and you gain melee energy for it. Every swing with Frenzied Blade counts. Slice 1, pick up an orb that was generated by your melee final blow, then get that stack back. Great for looping large amounts of damage against harder enemies. Impact Induction, causing damage with a powered melee, reduces your grenade cooldown about 5% for every hit. And Momentum Transfer, causing grenade damage, reduces your melee cooldown again 5% per hit, and that is why we're also using pulse grenades, because every time it pulses and damages an enemy, you're going to get that 5% energy back for your melee. Chest piece is easy, just use whatever resistance mods you have for whatever activity you're doing. So if you need the resistance in Solar, Void, Arc, Strand, or Stasis, go ahead and slap those on there. Let's talk about the boots. We want to use Invigoration for the melee cooldown every time you pick up an Orb of Power, and you want to double up on Recuperation for the health restoration. Picking up an Orb of Power grants health. If we were to just use one recuperation mod, it would give us a little less than what Cure would give you, but if you stack 2 of them, we're getting about 12% health back for every orb picked up. Keep yourself alive, Guardian. Lastly, we have our Titan Mark. Time Dilation is an absolute must to keep your armor charges up by extending their duration. Next, you want to have on Powerful Attraction. Using your class ability automatically collects nearby orbs, granting you woven mail from Facet of Purpose, giving you armor charges to get your melee back, as well as suspending targets in front of you, literally making you a beast for when you get back into the action after a reload. You gotta reposition, whatever the case may be, this is going to give you the most benefit. Between the armor mods and the aspects and fragments and prismatic, we will be a force to be reckoned with, from the ability uptime to the healing, the straight up damage output. What's not to love here? I know the community has gravitated towards Hunter Prismatic subclass, which is the best in the game. I'm not going to argue there. And with the lack of Titans in the day one raid race, I think it's time we showed some love to the Titans and their melee focused attitude. So let's go ahead and rate this build on a scale of 1 to 10 in 3 categories. Starting with synergy, I'm giving it a straight up 10 out of 10. This build has literally been curated with everything from the aspects all the way down to the armor mods and weapons to be activating all of your abilities at the same time, whether that be healing, dealing damage, generating ability energy, or playing it safe. This build can pretty much do everything all at the same time. As far as damage, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. There are so many powerful abilities in the game. This one is no exception. The only thing that this build lacks is Banner of War in all of its glory. The damage buff from Banner of War is unmatched on Titans, and it's a shame we can't have it here, but we made up for it in other ways. Survivability, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. It's really hard to die with this build, but sometimes you do get caught in between recharges or there's no orbs on the field. This is a melee focused build geared towards those who aren't afraid to get all in the face of the enemy. But with the healing and the overall defense this build offers, whether you're a new light or you fight alongside the Vanguard on a regular basis, this build will do you just fine. Overall rating, I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. This build has a little bit of everything thanks to Prismatic. The grenade ability is fire. Always being able to output damage to the fullest is great. And now with the 4th Frenzied Blade Charge, there's nothing you can't cut through. If you're thinking to yourself, this guy is absolutely crazy, Banner of War is just the much better option, I would have to agree. So here's what you could do if you want to go all in on Strand. We're using pretty much all the same abilities. The only thing that changes is the shackle grenades, because we don't have the pulse grenades available to us in the regular Strand build. Ranger's Lash is staying put. We're going to slap on Banner of War, defeating a target with a melee, finisher, or sword to raise a Banner of War that pulses with energy, healing you and nearby allies and increasing melee and sword damage. This can stack up to 5 times, giving you about a 5% bump for each stack if your nearby allies can get final blows with this buff. For fragments, we're losing out on a bunch here. We are kind of sacrificing quite a few things, but it still gives you the ability to keep your grenade and woven mail up for a good amount of time. Starting with Thread of Generation, dealing damage generates grenade energy, sitting around 1.5% per hit, and with a weapon, 3% with an ability. You know, it's okay, but with the uptime, you're gonna have to be dealing a lot of damage pretty much round the clock. Thread of Rebirth, Strand weapon final blows have a chance to spawn a threadling, great for ad clear, for the solo activities, especially when you're using the call sidearm. Thread of Warding, picking up an orb of power grants woven mail, check that box there. And lastly, we have Thread of Continuity, suspend, unravel, and sever effects to targets have an increased duration. Awesome for keeping things suspended while you reload or reposition again. This is not as potent, but if you absolutely need to be using Banner of War, this is going to be the next best thing. I've been having so much fun with Prismatic Titan these last few weeks, and the amazing synergy with pretty much every touch point on this build. It's a no-brainer for Titans who just want to punch. If you try this build, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to know how you feel about Prismatic Titan and the melee focus for this build. Hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more Destiny 2 content. Also, join our Discord to find fire teams, share your roles and builds, as well as discuss all things Destiny. Links are down below. Happy hunting, Guardian. See you in the next one.